Hello and welcome to Country Matters, a brand new series dedicated to the British countryside, both past and present. During the coming weeks, I shall be talking to a wide range of different people from all walks of life with a common interest, a love of the countryside. We'll be covering such a wide variety of subjects, I can guarantee there'll be something of interest to everyone. I'll be meeting a falconer to find out about the skills and the history of this ancient sport, and I'll see exactly what is needed to become a master thatcher. I shall also meet a bodger, a putcherman and a cadger, all of whom are still around today. I shall help a family set up a bird feeding station in their garden, and I shall also get expert advice on how to make the perfect nest box and as to where it should be sited. Throughout the series, we shall be looking at the traditional country crafts that still survive today. We shall watch a hedge being laid, and we shall also see just how much one man and two horses can plough in a day. So, if your heart's in the country and it matters to you, then this is the series you need to watch, Country Matters. Woodland is an important source of materials for many country crafts. A gentleman we're about to meet uses this carved implement, and I wonder if you might guess what it might be used for. It's about 9 inches long and it's shaped like a club, but it's carved on the end into 3 pieces. These are wedge shaped, so if you give that some thought for a moment, we'll reveal all later in the programme. So it's early spring and plenty is happening. There's lots to see. Everything's about to burst into bud. A few days ago I met up with local man Ian Bond. Hedgerows are a vitally important feature of the British countryside. Besides being stock-proof field boundaries, they are also important habitat for wildlife. This is typical hedgerow that was laid some 4 years ago, and it is about to be laid again to thicken it up. Laying hedges is one of the many of the old skills that are still practiced. The technique is handed down from father to son, and Ian Bond prefers to do all the hedge laying on his own farm, evolving from a practical need to contain farm stock. Each county has developed its own style of hedge laying. After trimming all the branches that are considered unsuitable, the remaining tall ones are cut halfway through using the bill hook and then bent over and pushed and woven to form the hedge, usually hawthorn or blackthorn. A stout pair of gloves are essential. Because the branches that are to be used are not cut off completely, they continue to grow, forming a living barrier. The billhook is the traditional tool used for hedge laying and gets its name from being shaped like a bird's bill. hedge layers were once paid by the yard or lug. All the little bits are trimmed, and so slowly but surely you move on to the next piece of hedge. So there it is, a beautifully laid hedge. I'm planning to go bird watching soon, so thought I would pop along to see what was new in the binocular line. I'm sure things must have changed since I bought my trusty old pair. So Keith, we've come today to have a look at the purchase of a pair of binoculars. Could you give us some details of what we should be looking for?
Right, generally the two main systems to look for are either a compact or a large binocular. The majority of people will buy something like an 842, 8 times magnification, and with 42 millimeters of objective glass in the end. The old style binocular had offset prisms, so it would have been a fairly wide binocular and stepped in its appearance. Now the actual binocular goes straight through, still with the prisms in there, but instead of the prisms bouncing off to an angle, the prisms are all in one.
Right.
So, and obviously because you have such a smart, small compact unit, you can also now make it fully waterproof too.
So, technology.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Keith, if I'm going out bird watching, what would you recommend?
We would recommend something along the lines of 8 or 10 times magnification in a 42 millimeter objective, as I said just now. But the binocular you have in your hand at the moment, that's a 1028. So it has a minimal amount of objective glass in the end. So in very poor conditions, it's not going to be that bright.
No.
However, because it's so small and compact, and will stick into a nice little pocket or on a bum bag, it's something which would be used mainly, say, by mountain walkers.
Yes.
Somebody not wanting...
Or a day at the races.
A day at the races, indeed,
yes.
Yeah.
So these are the ones we're looking at, and these are...
So that's an 842, for instance.
8 by 42.
In a roof prism style. So it's going to give you a nice, easily handleable binocular, fully waterproof, just a really nice instrument to use. Why don't you try one and see what you think?
Thank you very much. So if we want to go really into bird watching, we want to get further distances and sharper, then what are we going to use then?
Right, well, first and foremost, 95% of your work is going to be done with a binocular.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure you choose the correct binocular and that you're happy with it.
Yes.
Once you have the right binocular, then the next thing then to consider is a telescope. Something like this fella here. So it's going to have a minimum of 60 millimeters of objective glass in the end, and it's going to have around 20 times magnification as a starting point.
Right.
So big magnification, nice bright image, but obviously with a bigger magnification you're going to get more movement, and therefore you need to start thinking about a stand for it. So a telescope, bigger magnification, it's going to be heavier, and it needs to go on a tripod. You look through here, you focus there, and that's going to give you much bigger magnification.
Okay.
And as you can see, you do need the stability of a tripod.
Yes. So, and I mean, yes, I mean that's incredible, isn't it? How close the birds are actually
Absolutely,
brought.
and you'll get
absolutely
much more
crisp,
detailed, yeah.
crisp, clear. We know that you can go into somewhere to a cheaper shop and buy binoculars at £40–50, but what we're saying here is that if you want to do some serious bird watching, then you're going to be looking at about £200 plus. Yeah.
If you're going to be serious about your bird watching, then you need to be talking in three figures.
Yep.
So for circa £150, you're going to get yourself a fairly good binocular. Around £200 is where you're going to get your best value for money.
Right.
And for that kind of money, you'll get a super glass.
Well, thank you very much for that. We'll go and do some bird watching.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. I've been a keen bird watcher ever since I can remember. So I've set off to a terrific place just 8 miles east of Cirencester in Wiltshire. Sand martins, they're due in any time this month. Let's have a look, see what we've got. The Cotswold Water Park is one of my favourite bird watching areas. It was created by gravel extraction, leaving many lakes full of water. Some of these lakes have been retained for nature reserves. And there we have some tufted duck out on the water. They always look so splendid at this time of year. They're just coming into breeding plumage. There you can see a bird courting a female. So gracefully moves along the water there. You just see his tuft on his head, how to get the name. Here's a close-up, and you can really see that yellow eye, that lovely iridescent purple on the head. And the female, much the same colours really, or the same lines, but she's all over brown. But again, that lovely yellow eye and that lovely blue bill. We've been joined by Simon in the hide now. Simon, where have you come from today?
I've come from Wootton Bassett, which is about 10 miles away near Swindon.
Right, and this is a spot you come to regularly, or?
Fairly often, yes, because it's so close and there are so many birds.
Right. So what would be your favourite bird you've seen here?
Well, my favourite bird I've seen here is definitely a red-footed falcon, which I saw 3 or 4 years ago when there was a large influx of them into the country, but they're quite a rare spring visitor, so I don't see those very often.
Right. So what are you hoping to see today?
Well, today I'm looking for the earliest spring migrants, maybe some chipchaps or sand martins even.
Well, they're due in any time, aren't they, the sand martins?
They are, yes.
And as we know, they like to congregate over the water, feeding off the early insects.
Yes.
But none as yet.
No, it's a bit deceptive today. It looks brighter than it really is.
Yes. Here we've got a coot, and he's carrying material ready for the nest. These are a very aggressive bird, or can be. But just look at the size of the material they're taking in for the nest there. Incredible. Just climbing up onto the platform there and placing it. And just look at that lovely white shield on the head, that lovely red eye. He's here eating waterweed. And again, what super condition he's in. And here look, we have a boundary dispute between two birds. You can see they puff themselves right up, turning on each other, just looking really big. And again, they're settling down again. It's not unusual for coots to get really aggressive when they fight, and it's not unknown for them to actually kill each other during some of these disputes. I'm watching now the little grebe, which is one of my favourite birds. It's a very small bird and often referred to as the pop-up. The reason why it's called the popper is because it dies down under the water, swimming underwater, feeding, and as it comes back up, it pops back out of the water. Here's one of the larger birds of the water park. It's the Canada goose. It was introduced into this country many years ago. Again, they can be a very aggressive bird. But for all that, it's a lovely looking bird. Nice to see. And here we have the largest of all, Europe's largest flying bird, the beautiful mute swan. These birds are actually upending, looking for waterweed. They can reach down about a metre. This one's got his sails up, or his wings. Just look at that graceful neck. Beautiful. I should probably spend about another hour here in the hide before going out onto the rest of the park and walking around the many footpaths around the lakes. And as it's such a nice day, I should probably have my picnic lunch here. These conical-shaped baskets are known as putchers and were traditionally used on the Severn estuary to catch salmon. This hand tool that we spoke about earlier is also used in the manufacture of these putchers, and we are here today to meet two gentlemen who still make them in the traditional manner. Although now retired from butcher fishing, Derek and Donald are still making the baskets. I first asked Derek why he still makes them.
Nice to see you. Putchers for garden ornaments, actually.
Right. This is growing plants, haven't they?
Growing plants, yes, like clematis and runner beans and sweet peas and that. And of course, these are quite some substantial things, and they should last quite a long time, really, in the garden.
Absolutely.
We have used them ourselves sometimes for this purpose, and they're quite effective.
So what made you give up butcher fishing in the Severn?
Well, decline in fish, really. The last few seasons there was a big deterioration in the amount of fish we were catching.
Right.
And of course our age, you know, we're getting on, and once you put the putchers in, it's a regular job, twice a day.
So on your butcher line on the Severn, how many of these baskets would you have had out?
We fished 300.
300?
Yes.
And how long were you fishing?
Actually, we were fishing for 32 years.
32 years?
Yeah, on two fisheries. We fished at Cow Hill to start with, and then we finished up at Severn House Farm at Barclay at Hayward Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Fishing in this way was dangerous, so great care had to be taken. With many years of experience behind them, Donald and Derek knew every mood of this river. The putchers had to be inspected on every low tide, regardless of the time of day or night. You had to be keen. The force of the river could very often damage the baskets, so running repairs were essential throughout the season. And how did the stocks decline then? I mean, in the early days, when you started 30 years ago, 50 years ago, what was the difference?
When we started in 1965, there was definitely more fish about, and a much bigger type of fish.
Right.
Until we came up to Barclay in 1973, the fish that we caught down at Albury was, well, I think each year we caught a fish 30 pounds or over.
Gosh.
But once we got up to Barclay, we only ever caught one salmon, and that was 31 pounds. Right. Over the 30 pound mark, or over the 25 pound mark. Really.
Right.
7 for your line. How many of these would you make in a day? When
You had a good day if you made half a dozen.
Butcher fishing has been practised on the Severn for generations,
You've done quite well.
and the fisheries were handed down through families. This method of catching salmon was evolved only on the Severn, although different methods were used on many other estuaries around Britain. The decline of salmon saw the end of this type of fishing, and apart from a fishery on the opposite bank, there are no others taking salmon in this way.
Now, traditionalists would say that Severn caught salmon is different to any other salmon. What would be your comments on that, Donald?
Well, there's definitely a difference. Taste and texture and in colour.
Is that of farm salmon or even other wild salmon?
Well, the wild salmon caught in the Severn, as opposed to the farm fish that come from out of the Scottish fish farms, is a darker pink in texture when you cut it. And they're heavier, deeper in the middle cuts of them for the same weight of fish.
As Donald progressed on the basket, I thought it was a good time to find out just exactly what the wooden tool was for.
We were fascinated by this hand tool. Could you tell us something about this and, and its use?
That's a very old tool. That was from the Weiss family. They fished many years ago. It's probably 100 years old, and it's a piece of beech been turned down and divided into 3 equal lots on the end. And the idea is that the staving that we've got there, the bigger rods, that's it. That's the full length staving. We trim them out, which Derek was just doing, and then we just run the worst sauce down there like that. Mark it on the top. Like that. Like that. And you put that into the as you can see, it will split the 3 equally as you run down. Oh. Now you've got 3 staves out of one rod.
That's amazing.
Whilst Donald makes the main body of the Putcher basket, Derek was doing the finishing, called nosing up. This entails weaving a spiral of willow from halfway up the basket to the end. This gives the Putcher form and strength. Modern Putchers still being used on the last salmon line are made of a stainless steel and are square in shape. And when erected, they make an impenetrable wall, making this type of fishing more efficient.
So is Putcher fishing done anywhere else besides the Severn?
Yes, there's a few Putchers. I don't know whether they're still fished, but there are a few Putchers used to be fished in the River Parrot.
Right.
Something like that, yeah.
So again, it was on the Severn?
Well,
it's a tributary of the Severn?
Yes. It runs into the Bristol Channel, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
The main stays of the basket, the uprights, are hazel, whilst the weaving is done with willow, locally harvested during the winter. The Putchers were traditionally made ready for the season start in April.
So what are your thoughts on the future of salmon on the Severn?
Well, hopefully they'll come back one day, but I can't see it for a long time now. Stocks have been depleted so much, I'm afraid, and until the netting at sea is greatly curtailed.
Due to the lack of salmon entering the river systems, it is only a matter of time before Putcher fishing will be lost forever. And that's all for this week's Country Matters. I shall look forward to being with you next week.